I'm Cindy, and welcome to Pearls of Liberty, March 3rd, 2012. We had some family events over the last few weeks, so we were unable to do our regular Saturday video.
We've lost all our viewers. We got to get them back. Come back, come back.
Well, if they're paying attention to the news, they're probably looking for every possible source of information, especially with what has happened in the Liberty movement.
We're not blacked out.
No, we're not blacked out, thank God.
We were just away for a little while.
Yeah. This week was a really big week. We're not dead either, thank the Lord, but Andrew Breitbart is, unfortunately, and he was prepared to bring the world what he said was damning information regarding the Obama administration.
These revelations really are shaking up the media world, and a lot of people that are paying even a reasonable amount of attention are highly suspicious that Andrew Breitbart was killed. I believe the odds are pretty close to certain that he was, and it's very easy these days for the powers that be to make things look like an accident or a heart attack, etc. They have special weapons that can do that, and chemicals that are untraceable that are in the blood. But probably everybody that's paying attention by now knows that Andrew Breitbart said in 3 separate speeches, wait till you see what happens on March 1st, and he was going to release a video that in those mentions of that he said this will bring down Obama. It ties in with the birther stuff, but it clearly shows him being a anti-American revolutionary tied in with terrorists trying to bring down the United States. And this was in the 60s, hanging around with Bernadette Dorn and Bill Ayers and other people like that, known terrorists. And this is stuff that I knew before he was elected, but a lot of people, I'm sure, didn't know. And Breitbart was saying, we're going to vet the guy this time, and we're going to get the story out there. So this stuff was going to go mainstream because Breitbart has a constituency of people that are on the right, but are interested in real news reporting. And he was a controversial figure, made some enemies, but he really stirred things up. He was an effective journalist, partisan, on the right side of the left-right paradigm. And when I first heard about his death, first read about it first thing in the morning when I woke up March 1st, I thought, well, this guy's definitely in the left-right paradigm. He's not really exposing that paradigm, so I didn't take it too seriously at first. But in retrospect, this was a major event. These guys have power struggles. These different factions within the New World Order have power struggles with themselves. So the struggles in left versus right are real at the lower levels. And the news media, this is the lower levels, but he's getting too hot. So you've got the powers that be behind the scenes that want to shut him down. And this video is supposed to come out in 2 weeks. Why would it take 2 weeks? It shouldn't. That's a red flag. Hopefully, the whole thing is getting leaked so that if there's any parts that are missing, they're going to become known, and that's going to become an issue. So let's all hope that the truth comes out that Breitbart wanted to expose, and it can. People really are not in the dark anymore about what's happening in this country. Many people, because of the internet. So I don't think that he died in vain. I think the cause will go on, and I think that Obama will be exposed for who he is and what he is doing to this country. I think the powers that be do want to give him another 4 years, and who they have in as an alternative to Obama is going to make a lot of difference in that, because you know, rather that he stayed there and the opposition grow rather than get in some new guy like Romney that a lot of people think is going to be okay, and then he's not really, and it's going to take another 2 to 3 years for people to wake up after that. So this is a very, very interesting time. A lot of stuff is getting shaken out, and this death of Andrew Breitbart and the push of these revelations is a big, big deal.
And you mentioned briefly that people have become more aware now, and relating to Andrew Breitbart, I've been thinking about all the people who were said to have mysteriously died during the Clinton era, suicides, heart attacks while flying airplanes, of someone who's otherwise been known to be healthy. And at that time, while the list of dead people finally did make the internet, I don't think that we were watching, most of us were watching as closely when each death occurred, when each incident happened. Now, I think it's much more difficult for them to pretend like everything's normal. Oops, he died of a heart attack. Just because we've become a little wiser, we've become a little more knowledgeable. Yes, presidents, politicians do have people killed. And now that I think, are more aware of that, it's a little more difficult to pull the wool over people's eyes.
And we should mention that there were serious firings and changes in the news media. Rupert Murdoch is being hounded. Not that we're fans of Fox News, but you have, like I said, you have very real power struggles in the media, and you've got this the left purge, the communist, the Fabian socialist faction of the New World Order coming out against the Nazi faction that is weakening, perhaps due to some other things that we'll talk about in a minute. So these power struggles are real. Murdoch's on the ropes, and Judge Andrew Napolitano was let go from Fox, or he was relieved of his show. His show was taken away from him. And there are shakeups like that happening. Pat Buchanan is gone from, I forget exactly what, I don't know if he had a show or what it was. He was fired. So the voices for constitutional liberty and conservatism in America are really feeling the pressure right now. But I think that could be there could be a silver lining in that cloud, because that makes people wake up all the more, just like the NDAA did. When outrageous stuff happens, then people really start to do one of two things: just like give up and say, well, these guys are too powerful, we can't do anything. Well, that's the wrong approach. Or to get into the fight, get serious, and be ready to take a stand. And that's what it's come to.
What exactly was it that was so threatening about the information that Andrew Breitbart was going to bring to light? Is there any is there any specific knowledge of what it was he was it? I heard something about Obama had met with communist leaders.
Yeah.
And there was treasonous behavior.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. This is old news, and like I said, I knew about it before Obama was elected, and anybody that was really scrutinizing this guy on the internet did know about this stuff, that he hung around with the Weather Underground and the groups in the 60s radicals that were blowing up buildings and killing people, and that he was basically in that inner circle. And the obvious implication is that he didn't grow out of that, but just found a more sophisticated way to take down the United States, and that's what he's in the process of doing. And he's in cahoots with the bankers, Goldman Sachs, etc., because that's what they want. The powers that be, we think, well, why would they bite the hand that feeds them? Why would they kill the goose that lays the golden eggs? Well, the answer is because there is too much in the Constitution that prevents their power from growing and becoming a greater monopoly. They want that aspect of America gone so that they can take greater control over everything. And it's becoming more and more obvious that we're living in a new fascist America, and they want to go in that direction even further. And wait a minute, communism is the opposite of fascism. Not true. That is really a lie that's been sold us, because they're just two totalitarian ways. It's a different way to get to the same end result. In fascism, you've got the corporations empowered, and in communism, you've got the government empowered. Well, guess what? They both go together. It's the government isn't empowered without the corporations, and the corporations aren't empowered without the government. You have to have both, and that's what's happening in America today, and that's what Obama is leading. We don't want to be under the illusion that the guys with an R after their name are any better, but don't be under the illusion that this guy's fighting for the little guy, and he's a good Democrat who isn't beholden to big business. He is every bit as much as the Republicans at the top of their party too. So yeah, it's the known associations with the communists in the 60s that are Obama's roots that Breitbart wanted to expose, and he had the platform to do that. So when these videos come out, we'll see what they are. And now there's 2 weeks for the Obama camp to try to do some damage control editing, make some threats against people that are doing the editing, that kind of thing. So we'll see what happens and see how they try to spin it. But Obama is not who he said he was. There's also Judge Arpaio, and not Judge, Sheriff Arpaio in Arizona has a very, very strong case against Obama's eligibility, and that is actually, he was on the phone with Andrew Breitbart the day before Breitbart died. And so there are people that are just not going to roll over and let this guy get away with what he's getting away with.
And we hope that you will all pray with us for the safety of those people. There also are 2 weeks for anticipation to build, which could be a very positive thing. Regarding the Obama administration, Fast and Furious has somewhat taken a back seat with all of this other news. However, we have news from our friend Ian Garland, who is still being held in jail, going on a year now, with no bail, no trial. He changed his plea. They had convinced him, his public defender had convinced him that he should plead guilty to lesser charges so that he would be able to be released from incarceration. However, as more time went by and Ian was still in jail, he decided that he did not want to lie and say that he was guilty when he was in fact not guilty. So he let his public defender know that he wanted to change his plea. And right around the time when we mentioned before, the jail that he was in was the jail that had lost the lawsuit that they're forced to pay somebody $12 million for poor medical care and so on and so forth. And Ian also was receiving horrible medical care and was being ignored when he was ill. And right around that time, he changed his plea. This lawsuit was lost by that jail, and he was whisked off to another jail. And for almost a week, his wife didn't know for certain where he was. His friends were unable to get in touch with him. Well,
they changed his prisoner number, which they never do. They're not supposed to do.
Right, they did. In letters that the correspondence that we sent him was returned to us. And so now, although the week before he was moved, he was playing chess with the guards, and he'd been a trustee at the other jail. Now he's considered so dangerous that he has to be kept in solitary confinement. And it's extremely cold where he is. He's very sensitive to cold, and he's unable to get clean underwear.
Did you say his body was numb for a few days or something?
Yeah, he couldn't feel his toes for like 3 days because he was so cold.
Yeah.
And he's really being severely mistreated. And all of this ties back into the Obama administration because the people who are prosecuting these cases don't want him to be able to speak to anybody. They've denied him access to the press, and the press to him, and they've just made things almost impossible for him. And I think they're hoping that he'll die because they don't want him to be able to tell his story.
Yeah, we should say briefly for people that haven't heard this before what Ian Garland's story is. He was a legal weapons dealer in
New Mexico.
In New Mexico, and he would routinely check with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and before he would make any major sales, and he did that twice when selling to someone who was in law enforcement, police or something from I think it was out of state or not directly in his area, and that is what he was. Those guns that he sold to them after checking with the BATF ended up in Mexico and illegally, and he was charged with knowingly doing that and as a criminal activity. Well, obviously he's being framed, and this is a man who is a native Australian who immigrated to the United States because of his love of liberty and was even married on the 4th of July just because the whole thing of American independence from tyrannical rule meant so much to him. So they do not want this guy's story to get out. CBS News was going to interview him and was only able to interview his wife. The warden would not let CBS News interview Ian Garland. This is a dynamite story that has not yet broken.
Except by us.
By us.
Yeah, actually, Sharyl Attkisson of CBS had arranged to interview Ian, and the night before she received a phone call, the night before the interview was scheduled, it was all arranged. The night before she received a phone call telling her that she would not be able to have access to Ian. So she asked if she could just visit him as a visitor, and she was told that she could not. So there are a lot of rights being violated here, and I know that prisoners are said to not have any rights under the Constitution. However, Ian has not been convicted of any crime. He was charged about a year ago. He was put in jail. He still, to this day, has no trial date, and he was denied bail. So the whole thing is extremely fishy, and this is just the grassroots level of how the Obama administration has been operating. And
we don't
at the top, they kill people.
We want to point out that there was the gun stuff, and guns for drug laundering thing was going on under the Bush administration too. Yes, we know that. Yes, we got that. They weren't doing a false flag against the Second Amendment, though, trying to demonize the Second Amendment and say, oh, we've got to close down gun shows because all these guns end up in Mexico. That didn't start happening until Obama. So Obama's taken it to a new level, but this is very, very serious corruption.
Absolutely. So please pray for Ian. We'll put up his address and his inmate number, and if you are so moved, please drop him a line. It would mean a lot to him.
There's a Facebook page.
There is, yeah, and there's the blog that has all of Ian's letters is fastandfuriousjusticenow.org, and it's and spelled out, and I'll put that up in our what's every week really. It's always in our comments under our video. So please do. Jesus said that, I mean, that's one of the quizzes, that's one of the final tests on Judgment Day, a reference to whether you visited people who were sick and in prison. So please do remember Ian. And also please remember Ron Paul if the primaries are rolling around to your neck of the woods. And Don tells me that Ron Paul sustained a little criticism because he wasn't criticizing Romney enough.
Well, yeah, there's two things that I want to mention. One that I just noticed today, and maybe it was yesterday for the first time, yeah, I think yesterday I saw it, is that Carol Paul, Ron Paul's wife, has come out saying the election is being stolen, Ron is being robbed of delegates, and these shenanigans. So she is speaking out. And this is a woman who really hasn't said much in the campaign. She's starting to talk, and they are starting to take some actions to try to rectify things. And it's just they're fighting against a very corrupt political machine. There was an internet rumor, and I saw it through my brothers online a couple of weeks ago, maybe only a week or possibly two. There was a rumor that I saw, not just from them but from other places too, that Ron Paul just isn't attacking Romney, and what's that about? And that was, I think, well, I know that that's not true now. At first I thought, well, maybe that's true, because I don't watch the political ads, I don't watch TV. And they were saying that there's no Ron Paul ads against Romney. Well, that's blatantly false. Ron Paul's attack ads have been balanced between the three major candidates that have been in the race: Santorum and Romney and Gingrich also, and equally distributed among those. So it's patently untrue that Ron Paul is not attacking Mitt Romney. It's a disinformation campaign that I was guilty of assuming was true information, but it simply is not. And Ron Paul, when asked, is there possibility of a deal, he'll say no. But you do see these things, well, maybe he's going to be a VP slot. Ron Paul wants influence, so I don't think that he's going to, out of hand, say no to that. And they know that he has a huge block of voters, especially young people, that he can bring into the Republican side. So that's a good thing that they want him on board for that. So we'll see how that goes down the road. This is shaping up to be a broker convention. Nobody's going to have enough delegates to win it outright, and it should be very interesting to see how it all shakes out.
Well, we can always hope for the best, and perhaps some of the changes that are occurring in the meantime before the convention might have enough of an impact to cause significant good to come forth. And some of those changes are many arrests and many resignations worldwide, mostly from banking positions at this point. But there have been rumors of high-level politicians also being arrested, detained, questioned. So Don mentioned, and we've mentioned before, a global financial reset. And we believe that efforts at this are going on behind the scenes, and we believe that they are being successful to some extent so far, and we have great hopes that that banking won't be forced to back off, and we'll be able to gain some momentum for liberty. And would you comment on all that?
The powers that be had this scenario planned for a long time, that they would engineer the collapse and then propose the solution, being the saviors to the problem that they caused in secret. And there's just too many people now that know that that has been their agenda, and they are not about to let things get that out of hand. So there are people behind the scenes that are dealing with the corrupt leaders of global financial institutions, central banks in many, many countries around the world, and people underneath them. If you do a search on central bank resigns or resignation, you'll get a lot of hits of all of these worldwide central bankers that have been resigned. This is very similar to what happened in the 90s. I remember when there was this, all of these congressmen were stepping down, and Patsy Schroeder's one name that comes to mind, and she was just needed to spend time with her family, and there was a few other ones like that. There was, the good guys were making some progress. Well, they didn't end up completely being able to take control. But in those days during the 90s, what got started with that movement, that purge of the bad guys, was what is now known as NESARA, the National Economic National Economic Security and Restoration Act. And that is still moving forward. There's still many of the people that were a part of that. The whole point is this is gaining steam, this is gaining momentum, this is gaining awareness. There's a news blackout in the United States. You won't be able to find anything about it except on the internet about these major financial institutions. It's tied to a reevaluation of many of the global currencies, and it is even rumored that the United States dollar will no longer be controlled by the Federal Reserve. It'll be controlled by the U.S. Treasury Department, and it will be backed by a basket of commodities. And there is a way that they are going to arrange all this, and some of the strongest backers of this plan are the Chinese, who hold a lot of U.S. Treasury debt. They don't want their dollars to become worthless overnight, but they know that if this banker-engineered collapse happens, they will be left holding the bag. So they want the United States brought into the new world, this new financial system, and to be transitioned into having backing behind U.S. Treasury notes. They want that. And that's for the good of the United States. But you have the powers that be, the Bushes, the Clintons, the Geithner and Soros, and all those people, all the financial bigwigs that are in the U.S. establishment. You have them strongly resisting this. Not because they think that it would be bad for the United States, quite the opposite. They want their engineered collapse so that they can pose as the saviors. Well, this is not going to happen. This is not going to go down. This is looking like, as Benjamin Fulford says, that they won't be able to run. They won't be able to hide. They're going to be found out. And that's why there have been these detainments of people like Timothy Geithner. I loved what Fulford said about him. He said when they detained Geithner for a number of hours, usually they have to slap somebody around to get him to talk. Well, Geithner, they had to slap him around to get him to stop. So they're also saying that these rats, as they're often called, are trying to kill each other because they know that they are ratting each other out. When they are detained, they give intel against what they know about the other crime family, what they're doing. So these crime families are trying to kill each other before they can divulge the information that's going to take their crime family down. So this is all happening right now, and you're not hearing anything about it on the news. You have to be able to go and find it on the internet in various places. Fulford's one, NESARAnews.blogspot.com is another. There's a 4winds10.net is another. There are, and the currency revaluation, dinar recaps. A lot of that information is there. So it's happening, and if you want to know in general terms what's going on, you can. And we live in very exciting times, and we have hope because the good guys are winning. And don't ever think that if you're a Christian that things have to get bad so Jesus would come again. We always want to be occupying until he comes. We always want to be taking ground from the enemy. He is coming for a bride that's victorious and without spot or wrinkle. So do everything to be that victorious, overcoming church that Christ is coming for.
Absolutely. And if you're uncomfortable for whatever reason, because you've been programmed to be uncomfortable, to hear that China might be something of a hero in world politics and wants to actually help the United States, there's a tremendous prophetic word that came from Kris Vallotton a couple weeks ago, and we will put up a link to that, and I'll have the text of the prophetic word on our website and in our comments for the YouTube video. It's beautiful.
Excellent.
Prophecy.
Yeah, that's very encouraging.
It is very encouraging. He specifically mentions China impacting the world in very positive ways.
And we have no reason to believe that Kris has dug into this stuff like we have. We kind of think he knows who Ron Paul is. That's kind of the level of awareness that we think where Kris is at. But so this word, I think it's mostly just God. It's great stuff.
It is. It's beautiful. So Don watched quite a few films that I was not able to view, and he will talk about those. But a couple that we both saw. First of all, we'll just mention Monarchy. It's a series or a mini-series maybe from BBC. I think we've watched maybe.
We just love the royal
episodes.
family now.
Well, you know, the history is tremendous. It gives a lot of understanding.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. It does have a pro-monarchy slant, but there are reasons that the monarchy has survived, and the guy that does this documentary, David Starkey, is an excellent historian, and one of the things that he talks about that really emphasizes about why British monarchy has worked is because it's always been have the support of the people, and when it's been successful. Not that it's always been completely had the backing of the people, but that is the tradition that has gone along with it that's enabled it to be successful. You can argue how successful, but it's still around. We obviously think that the succession has been messed up by the Habsburgs and the Germans, and it's not really, that anything that goes on for a while, these evil guys try to get in there and take it over, and at this point they have. One amazing Fulford revelation is that the Queen Victoria is actually a child of one of the Rothschilds. So, boy, this stuff is just wow. Anyway, the Monarchy is a good documentary that will help you to understand sort of the roots of the Magna Carta and liberties, and if you're going to build on what's good. I mean, if you're going to make progress, you need to build on what's good and not just say, we're going to have a revolution and we're going to make everything better. Well, that is almost always a recipe for disaster. And one of the things that was pointed out to us not that long ago, or maybe it was me because Cindy wasn't there, was that it's not really correct to say the American Revolution, because revolution really is kind of in almost always a negative context. America was insisting on their rights based on what their rights were from their British heritage, including the Magna Carta. And it was a war for independence, not a revolution where you throw everything out and you start from scratch. So this video series, Monarchy with David Starkey, really helps to get some real solid understanding of what those traditions are that enabled people to be free and to support monarchies when they were good and to bring down monarchies when they were not.
It's also a very entertaining series. It's set in the places where the events occurred, which means beautiful chapels and just all sorts of gorgeous settings, castles and cathedrals.
Everything's so green.
Yeah, it's beautiful. England is beautiful. So it's very entertaining and fun to watch. We also, just last night, watched The Lincoln Lawyer, and it's Marisa Tomei and Matthew McConaughey, and neither of them has been in anything in a while. This film is from 2011. It was a home run out of the park as far as we were concerned.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey plays this lawyer who really, he's got a lot of street smarts, and he drives this big old Lincoln car and has a driver that often drives for him, and so he's kind of old style in some ways like that. He's got a motorcycle gang that kind of looks out for him, but he's very good in the courtroom, and he's got a lot of street smarts. He's put in a position where he doesn't realize what's going on until later, that I'm going to give away a little bit here, but that he has to deal with a psychopath, and he's his lawyer. He has to figure out how he's going to handle that, and that's all I'll say. And the people, and this is not a psychopath with no resources, this is a psychopath with money and power. So you can imagine the parallels to our world today, and it's just very well done. Well acted, great script.
And one of the things that we particularly enjoyed is that the reference to the evil elite is very clear and very obvious, and it's nice to see that affirmed in a recent film with big name actors. Although perhaps because of their beliefs, these two haven't been in a whole lot of films lately. But I'm glad they were in this one, and they really pulled it off. It's a great film. And Don's list is 5 films.
Okay, let's roll through them real quick.
Yeah, you go.
Formosa Betrayed is very interesting because it's a thriller, but it's political, and it's based on real history, and it's based on events that were like that are in the movie. Many people today probably don't even know what Formosa is. The name used to be Formosa, it's now Taiwan, and whenever elites change names, that's because they don't want you to know what the roots are. And what you had happen there was a police state was endorsed by, it was very authoritarian. It was always given the excuse, well, they have to crack down on the communists. They have to crack down on the communists. But once you understand the way the world works, you realize that that's not a valid excuse. These were supposedly a republic, and it was a police state that had the full sanction of the United States government. So there is a murder of an American who is a Chinese American and is a professor in the university there, and a young FBI guy goes over there. Now why it's FBI overseas, I don't know, but that's just, there's no real boundaries in that stuff now. It's supposed to be internal investigation, but this is in a foreign country, and he is purposely kept in the dark. They don't really want him to find out what happened. The powers that be in Formosa know what happened, and he gets involved with some people that are agitating for liberty, for a republic in Formosa, and they know who the killers are. They're the government. So I won't say any more. It's excellent, and I encourage everybody to watch it. It's no big name actors, but there's one of the people that wrote the script, one of the authors, plays the part of one of the major liberty, freedom activists, and does a great job. The Lazarus Project is an interesting film that deals with this idea, and when I think about it, I realize this is probably a lesser magic thing where they're telling you what is really going on, and you just never would have imagined it. And what it is that murders by lethal injection that are capital punishment, where somebody is executed for a capital crime, might actually be experiments. They might actually be taking those people that were given something that made them look like they were dead. They might be taking them somewhere else, giving them a new life, and using them as guinea pigs for experiments. In this case, it's a psychological experiment, and I won't say any more than that, but I would not be surprised if this kind of stuff really was happening, because you can see how they're trying to learn about how to make humans tick, how to control humans, how to make use of this life that would otherwise be thrown away. Oh, it's despicable, but it's completely logical in how these corrupt elites think. The Escapist was an interesting movie. This is a French film about a prison and an older man who wants to escape because he has a daughter, I think, that has gotten herself seriously addicted to drugs. He gets a letter from his wife, and he just has to get out because this is the one person that he really loves in the world, and he wants to help her. So he's got to arrange for some people to help him escape, and he does that. But and it's interesting, the film techniques that are used, because they flash back and forth between the escape happening and the progress that they're making and the planning of the escape, and you're never really sure why our main character doesn't really look like he's going to make it. And then, I won't give it away, but you realize that he knew that from the very beginning, and he made it possible for the other people to escape. So it's a good film, and it is well acted. It is a French reform film. The final one I want to talk about is the incident at Oglala, and this takes place on Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and in Liberty circles, especially on the left, and those that are in tune with Native Americans, you hear a lot about, or you can hear from time to time about, Leonard Peltier. And this is a documentary film, and so I got to see the man on camera, the real guy, being interviewed at various places. But of course, he's in prison for 2 consecutive life sentences, and he is totally framed, and you see the ugliness of the United States justice system, where there were 2 FBI agents that were killed on Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and they needed somebody to pay the price for that, and it becomes blatantly obvious that it wasn't Leonard Peltier. 2 other people were previously tried, and it was a fair trial. They got off because they didn't do it either. But then Peltier was in Canada. They had him extradited to bring him out, and he was hopeful because the 2 people before were let go, and he was hopeful that he would get a fair trial too, but he did not, because by then they learned how they could stack the deck against him, and they did. And he knows who the real person is that killed these 2 people, and he is serving life in prison and will not say. And that just blows your mind. He's such a meek, mild, loving person. It just blows you away to realize how evil it is to purposely put somebody away like that just because you need to show that you're tough and make a political statement. It's bad stuff.
So do you have any parting words of encouragement for people?
Things are changing. This is going to be an American spring in the best sense of the word, I think. There will definitely be difficult times ahead, but there are many, many hopeful signs, and we want people to be encouraged. Prepare for the worst, but hope for the best, and stand your ground.